sang for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to Without a Country. I am Corinne Fisher. Welcome to the show. Nice little crotch lick to get it started. We have Alfred here as our co-host, as always. Oh my God, Alfred, you're so cute. You're so cute. He doesn't like when people touch his paws. And we have to respect that. All right. Let's see. Welcome to the show. A lot to go over today, but that is no different than any other day in the Trump administration, as we always say. If you are new to the show, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Corinne Fisher. I'm a stand-up comedian, a podcaster. My areas of expertise are women's issues, animal rights issues. I ran for mayor of New York City last year in 2025. Proudly defeated by Zohrans Muslim. I mean, I wasn't defeated. I didn't even make the ballot, so there really was no defeat. I was defeated actually by the Board of Elections of New York City, whom I fought in court. More on that another time. But thank you for being here on Without a Country. We tackle the biggest news stories of the week and the most important things that might have gotten buried in American news, international news, municipal news, and we do a lot of stuff with domestic violence and animal rights as well. So no matter if you're on the left, on the right, or feel lost somewhere in between, please know, unlike many leftist spaces, you are welcome here on this show. I was getting in a big fight this week because I've been doing a lot of work with Disrupt that I've been talking about. Disrupt is one of the leftist organizations that is trying to combat Turning Point. It's one of the left's response to Turning Point. Not the only, there are a few, but this is one of the major ones. And they were posting clips from a panel I was a part of a couple weeks ago with a lot of huge political influencers, people who are much more known in the political influencing space than I am. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty new here. Or relatively new here. I've had this podcast for a while, but as far as influencing, relatively new. And they put up, they chose the clips and they chose an excerpt of a clip where I was talking about how the left needs to simplify its messaging and pick three things that we on the left really want to achieve that we can convey to prospective voters, and that we need to also, the second part of the point I was making that the clip was about was that we need to stop talking about the right as if they are simpletons, basically because, even if you believe them to be uneducated or misinformed, how simple can a group of people who elected Donald Trump twice successfully really be, which is my argument. It's kind of similar to my argument if you want to do it from a pop culture perspective. It's very similar to my argument that Britney Spears can't be as dumb as we all said she was, right? And this is, OG Britney Spears, not current Britney Spears. Now, Britney Spears is obviously suffering from a mental health, issue. But back in the day, people would always talk about her like she was such an idiot. And it really bothered me because, number one, if you actually listened to what she was saying in interviews, I didn't find her to be an idiot at all. I mean, a lot of these interviews, it's like, is she an idiot or is she a 16-year-old girl? I think actually for a 16-year-old girl, she was giving really intelligent, well thought out, beyond her years responses to the questions. But perhaps because she was sold to us in a package that represented womanhood, we were looking at her as if she was a woman when really it was a girl talking. So anyway, that's kind of how I actually see many people on the right. I'm not saying they're going to ace a test, but I'm saying I think they're clear on what they want, even if the way they go about the methods they use to get what they want lack, in my opinion, ethics, right? And so anyway, me saying these things, first of all, of course, because it is, you know, a leftist space, people immediately started speaking down to me as if I am an idiot. You know, things like, simpleton and simplistic aren't two of the same. It's not the same word, but nice try. It's like, I never said it was the same word. That was not at all what I was saying. If anything, I was, being cutesy with wordplay is all I can be accused of. And I agree. That is quite a crime. But I was, doing all these talking points pretty much off the top of my head. And I thought I did a pretty good job. Especially as I mentioned, since, when I was involved in mayoral forums and stuff, like we had those questions for the most part ahead of time. So I could go in pretty well prepared, which, sometimes now when you hear mayoral candidates respond to questions in a forum, it's actually crazy knowing that most of those questions they probably got in advance with how pathetic their answers are. But I digress. So that was just funny to me because, one person in the comments section really got it right. I'm actually going to go and read her comment right now because I wasn't getting involved. And then, of course, someone got in and started, attacking me for existing as a white woman and how we always try to, how apparently me saying that the Democratic Party should all get on the same page and really work towards 3 goals that we can all agree on, in my opinion, goals that are of service to the working people, and aren't wishy-washy and aren't answers, that are making people unhappy, like Gavin Newsom's, I revere Israel, but I also think Netanyahu's a bad guy. Like, these kinds of things are not winning elections, is my point. But we do love to stay arguing on the left. And I think it's really, and I don't know what this is, but people on the left really refuse to believe that anyone on the right has brain cells, I suppose. And again, my pushback would be like, they gotta have some because they won the 2 elections that we are most angry about. I guess, so you can say they lost the one in the middle, but, not if you ask Donald Trump. And so someone who follows me actually gave a good answer. Let's see. There was a couple of things here. Someone's like, they are okay. So these are the bad answers. One person said, shut up. Simplicity is sanitizing, and that does nothing. They are simpletons. Stop placating to the feelings of deplorables. So she's, using the language that literally, part of the language that lost Hillary Clinton the election. And me, I love Hillary Clinton, but this is crazy. White women and the dedication to white supremacy and the psychological wage is the nation's greatest danger, not complicated messaging. She's embarrassing. She being me. So number one, I love how now out of all the problems in the world, it's specifically white women are the number one problem in America. So I thought that was interesting. A bunch of people stood up for me there. I mean, I wasn't engaging in any of this. I just think this is really interesting because, as one person pointed out to several of these comments, or several people pointed out, like, a lot of these people in the comments are proving my point for me, right? I am in a space, and again, I didn't pick this clip, and people love to pick clips that I think they know will cause people to fight because it jogs the algorithm. I am not a fan of such content, and that's actually a big reason that I stopped clipping up this show, because every time I would post a Without a Country clip, it made the big points I was making smaller, and and it caused people to get in fights, and like the clips would perform well a lot of the time, but because of people arguing in the comments, and I'm like, this is just absolutely the opposite of what I'm looking to achieve with this show. And anytime I would talk about one thing being true, it automatically made many people who follow me thinking that I did not believe another thing to be true. And I know a prime example, and why, several people who I thought I was friendly with actually unfollowed me because, this is like years ago at this point. At the beginning of at the time, it was merely a conflict, not a genocide, but or we didn't know it was going to be a genocide, I guess. And with the conflict on October 7th, there was, as is noted, and we'll talk about even further today, a clear uptick in anti-Semitism like I've never seen before in my over 2 decades in New York City and my entire life as a Jewish person. And I posted something about that. And it wasn't taking anything away from the horrors that are going on in Palestine, and the fact that the retribution was completely uneven. But just posting that, maybe so many people unfollow me because they saw that I had posted something about anti-Semitism during these times. And they said, oh, they just decided for themselves, based on, I guess, patterns or other things people had been saying, that because I was even, daring to speak about anti-Semitism as part of it, that surely I was pro-Israel, which is not now, nor has ever been true. I was never like, yep, exactly. What Israel's doing is 100% what you should be doing. Never did I say that. I called it a genocide years ago, before a lot of people online did, but people see what they want to see. Anyway, so that's where I'm coming from. And another person goes, they are simpletons because they are uneducated. And then referenced a video I made that was about this, please to stop the spread of misinformation that was completely misinterpreted. She goes, you just made a video asking people to stop using influencer clips as facts and to remember how to write a 6th grade research paper. I've been using those words of yours, shaking my head. And so I love that someone calling a simpleton conflated 2 things that had nothing to do with each other. I know the video that she's talking about, it was a video warning people against the rampant spread of misinformation that we've been speaking about on this show. And then she was comparing this clip of me at a political panel with many other people in politics who were there to fact check me if I needed to be, and posted by a reputable political organization that I don't think would be spreading things. And also this clip where I'm talking about the strategy that I am suggesting is neither fact nor fiction. It is my personal opinion about what the left should do. So it has nothing to do with fact or fiction. And if you don't think it's the strategy for the left, as many people in the comments don't, that's fine. But it has nothing to do with the spread of information. A strategy will always be an opinion. Even if a strategy succeeds, it doesn't make it fact. It just means that it is something that in that situation worked. So possibly then would be used in, further future situations like that, because it has a history of working. Anyway, someone here agrees that maybe 3 concepts that we could start off is a good idea. Her ideas are fuck lobbying for Israel, fuck the billionaires, working class prosperity forever. I don't think those are 3 bad ones. I think those are good ones. I'm pretty anti-lobbying in general, like even for things that I agree with, like tax the rich. I was like, I am not going into Albany as a lobbyist. I did not tick the box where they asked if I wanted to go in and lobby. I mean, I have, it just, to me is odd. It's like if we're listening to the constituents, it should be like, and the constituents overwhelmingly agree with taxing the rich. I don't really see why we need lobbyists and why we need to go and play games with our elected officials, i.e. Kathy Hochul. So that's an example. Another person says they are a cult. They cannot and will not be moved, even if the issue appeals to them. I don't agree with that at all. We've seen plenty of movement, and there are full organizations for people who have left the cult of MAGA. And I'm putting it in quotes. I just, I don't know why it is a cult, but many things are a cult. And I don't think people understand like how easy it is to get into a cult. As I said, I kind of think Soul Cycle is a cult. So if we're starting on like, that's kind of the lowest level of cults there. If they haven't jumped ship after all that has happened, they are willing to sink with it. I mean, I agree at this point. If you're still on board, you're probably going to be on board for a lot of things. That doesn't mean that we should stop trying to speak to them, that we should stop trying to recruit people on the right. And more importantly than people on the right, undecided voters and people who feel disenfranchised politically as a whole. I think that's really where you're going to win people over on the Democratic Party. If we completely rebrand or, backtrack and go back to when Democrats were actually for the working people. Of course, someone, a bot comes in trying to promote the Democratic Socialists of America. Let's see. Someone says, I do think the national message does need to focus on a few simple tasks. Number one, increase wages, both minimum and some sort of incentive for higher wages for the bottom 75% of employees. Two, education cost reforms, tie federal loan rates at 2% to meet inflation goals, allow for payments to be made pre-tax credit against income. Three, healthcare reform, implement regional state independent nonprofits similar to Germany. Tax reform, capital gains equivalent to income tax after $500,000, and stock leveraging for loans. Avoid taxes, limit and buybacks. Polish those ideas and give them a catchy name, and 5% of folks will flip left. Again, like, I love people who are coming to the table with good ideas and realize that if we just sold, like, again, we've talked about this extensively on this show, but it's like our ideas can't be not that, meaning not MAGA. Like, that's our ideas. That's not an idea, right? That's a resistance to an idea. And so it's funny to me that so many people in the comments came with your idea is stupid, but then offered no idea. And I really love the people who had this. Of course, someone comes with little heart hands and goes, not the take you think it is. No, it's exactly the take I think it is. And your little internet sayings where you offer absolutely no solution to the problem at hand are abysmal. And, this is a guy wearing, first of all, like a little beanie, and he looks like he does community gardening, and he works in a tattoo shop. All of those things are fine, but sometimes people are exactly who you think they are and offering no fucking solution. And we love community gardening, but let's take it a step further. Someone said, the message I get from this is let's get aligned on a few topics and make bigger waves happen for those things. We are so overwhelmed by the endless number of problems and issues with our world, and it's paralyzing us individually and collectively. This person follows me, so I think they have a pretty good understanding of what I mean, but I thought it was articulated really well. That's what capitalism and patriarchy want, is for us to feel overwhelmed and out of control and not do anything meaningful. Better yet, spend your money on stuff to feel better. So I think it's a great idea for individuals and groups of people to get together and pick one thing or a few things they really care about and do something meaningful to try and create the world we want to live in. Anyway, so I just thought that was so interesting, and I talked about it a little bit on my Instagram story, but stuff like that really, that's just a little slice of being, every day in politics. And obviously, when I was running for office, much more abrasive than that. But even here, it's like, you're on here, I'm on the panel as a comedian. That was my purpose. I was supposed to offer information, which I did, but also a little bit of comedic relief. So the way that I was expressing things obviously was like a little bit more colloquial than I would have expressed things when I was running for office. Again, a lot of that nuance isn't going to show in a clip, which is the problem with political clips. And again, the algorithm really rewards people fighting it with each other. But then a clip that they posted 1 or 2 days later from Shay Chalk, who is also a big political influencer, was him talking all about how all this research has been done about the young men specifically who are signing up to be Republicans in droves, and that it wasn't the fascist ideas that sent them to the Republican Party. It was the community that exists. So even though the community on the right is often a community, with people joining together over an idea that's hateful, when they were interviewed, when they were surveyed, it was that they felt like they belonged, they felt like they were welcomed, and they felt like they had a community there. This is not a concept that is unique to politics. We have read so many articles in the past, 5 years about the lack of community that young people and people in general feel. Part of it is obviously because of social media. We spend a lot more times on our phones. We're working from home. We're doing we're doing therapy by Zoom. I'm doing this podcast by Zoom. We're doing so much stuff digitally. We're ordering our food. Everything is happening over our computers, and we are spending so much time engaging online and less time engaging with people in person. I just looked at a chart that was released in some major news source, 10 minutes before I got on air, and it was a pie graph of what people do with the hours in their day, and it was like 2.5+ hours scrolling on phone and about 45 minutes with in-person human interaction, like friend group. Obviously, like if you live with your family, you're going to be spending more time with them, but like, are you spending that time having a conversation around the dinner table, or are you spending that time all sitting around scrolling on your phones? Like, when I think about my childhood, and I know people hate when I talk about my childhood because it was nice, but believe me, adulthood is hell. But I remember so much communal time. I mean, we ate hundreds and hundreds of meals together at the dinner table. And, both my parents, my mom went back to work when I was in high school. I guess my brother might have still been in middle school. And so we went out to dinner a lot more, like a chain restaurants and stuff, nothing expensive then, or got takeout. But for many, many, many years, all 4 of my family members were showing up at the dinner table. And I got to be honest, like, I'll get choked up. These are some of the warmest memories of my life. I mean, I honestly have to say, I think sitting together at the dinner table is a big part of the reason why I am a stand-up comedian. Because my dad, he owned the baseball card store, Perfectly Centered, and he would come home from work, and he was an incredible storyteller, and he would tell these really, really funny stories about his crazy circus of customers. And like, if you've ever been to some kind of a hobby shop or a memorabilia store, the clientele there are extremely interesting. And so he kind of had like a sitcom cast. Like, he had the regulars. So there were regulars, my favorite being this guy named Joe, and he would tell these hilarious stories about his customers. And this is one of my warmest childhood memories, is hearing these stories over dinner from my father. And I remember multiple times having to excuse myself from the dinner table because I was laughing so hard that I truly feared choking. And I would have to go, and I don't know if you've ever laughed so hard, and I can't remember the last time I laughed this hard. And I do sometimes wonder if it's because we don't have enough human interaction anymore. But or because I'm just a jaded stand-up comedian, but I still really laugh a lot at stuff. I had to laugh so hard multiple times that I had to go into the den and physically roll out the laughter because I couldn't stop laughing. The only time as an adult or in recent years that I can remember laughing so hard that I truly didn't know if I could stop myself from laughing was when I was on mushrooms with my friends, and my friend was doing a Seal impression, like Seal the singer, but for some reason he made Seal Scottish, like Fat Bastard, from from the Austin Powers movies. So, but we're talking about laughter that was completely substance free. Like, when's the last time you laughed that hard? And it's going to be with your friends or with your family, whoever makes you laugh. I definitely still have a ton of hilarious friends who make me laugh a lot. But all that to say, that's a long way of getting back to how important and integral, especially when you are a young person, community is, in-person interaction is, feeling like you're a part of something, feeling like you have a purpose, and knowing what brings you joy, right? And so even though at that moment I didn't know I was going to be a stand-up comedian, it made me feel very connected to my family. And I also, I felt that, I felt like I had discovered, like, making people laugh or laughing myself makes me feel good. And this is something I can do in my everyday life to make other people feel good, which is making them laugh. And I, did that for my friends and stuff all through high school, sometimes in plays. And so I do wonder if, people, see these powerful individuals who are touting toxic masculinity ideas or fascist ideas, and those people appear to be powerful to these young minds. And I can see that. Like, I mean, obviously as a 40-year-old woman, I can't see it, but I can see, looking at someone like Andrew Tate, I suppose, if I'm a 14-year-old boy, as someone who has power. And and if you watch the Manosphere, the way they talk to their young fans is in a empowering way, meaning it makes them feel powerful, even if the power, I think, is from a bad source. And so these young boys are like, I like the way these guys make me feel. I like feeling powerful. I like feeling in control of, my life. And I want to, subscribe to these ideas and live this way in the world. And then hopefully other people will see me as powerful. I don't know. It's just something I've been spending a long time thinking about. But again, all going back to, we need to be more welcoming on the left. And basically every leftist I know is like, fuck all these people who voted for Trump forever and ever. And even like, I 100% understand why you feel that way. I 100% get it. I understand that as a white woman, as the commenters like to point out, that I am less affected. I would argue I'm still more affected than most men. I mean, not immigrants, but and not black men, but like a lot of men. Who aren't going to have their reproductive rights, stripped from them, who are not going to be unable to vote because they have their husband's last name. It's not like I am a part of an unaffected party by any means. And again, being Jewish, certainly not accepted, not accepted by extreme whites. So I don't even know why you would think I have such power. And we just really need to think about community and whatever that looks like to you, because I think it's something important outside of politics. And God, please, anyone who knows me well or knows me parasocially well knows when Corinne Fisher starts talking about the importance of community, we are so far past the need for community. Corinne Fisher, who, during COVID thrived because she spent so much time alone. Corinne Fisher, who could truly spend months and months alone in her house and be so happy. So when I start talking about the absolute need for community, we are past the point of no return with community. And I think that's just some food for thought for all the people who watch this show, whether you consider yourself on the right, on the left, or nowhere. I hope you can agree that us coming together is really important. And again, the true community should be everyone versus the billionaires, and people seemingly will never catch on to that. But maybe think about, if you're someone who wants to do something but doesn't want to run for office, it's like, how can you help to create community where you live? And not just community among like-minded people, not just community amongst people your age, not just community about people who all share a certain interest that might be many times gender specific. Real community, which is what I was trying to do with Pageant to the People. And I think, it was one place that I did it so far. I think I really succeeded, in Tucson. And I was so proud when I walked in, when there was people in their early 20s and there were people, I am talking like 80s, like elderly people there. And it was really nice to all be in a space together and share ideas and listen to the types of things that are affecting each other. So however you can help build community, I think is so imperative right now. And that's my monologue. As a reminder, I've said it a couple times before, but this is swiftly approaching. Nacho Bitches. Blair Saki and I are doing one single reunion show, Nacho Bitches, at New York Comedy Club Midtown, which was the original location of it. It's on East 24th Street, Thursday, April 9th, 9:15 p.m. The link is in both of our bios. It's on the New York Comedy Club official website. Make sure to get tickets. So we're going to have a really kick-ass lineup, and it's 100% going to sell out. So make sure to get your tickets to that. And don't leave it to the last minute, because it gives both of us anxiety. And then, Mike, I did have, I came across, I don't know if this exists, but I came across a gift idea for your mother. I don't know if you can come on, but Fox News, and it's in the document if you want to pull it up. Fox News has a wine shop that I feel like maybe I knew about this in the back of my head. Were you aware of this, Mike?
No, listen, I'm not up on the wine game, but I do know that,
well, because I'm subscribed to Fox. Are you? Because obviously I'm subscribed to like every news source we use.
No, I'm not subscribed to the wines of the week according to Fox.
Well, no. I'm just subscribed to regular Fox News, because it's something interesting about Fox, which I think is pretty smart, is they don't, I'm not paying them anything, but to even read anything, you have to put in your email address and log in, which I think is like really smart, because then they got your data.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Fox News.
And they can pitch you all the wines they want.
Yeah, I'm interested, but it's new from Fox News. Oh, I guess it's relatively new from Fox News. Great wines made in America. It's free shipping on 9 patriotic wines. How the club works. Which
one's the most patriotic wine?
I don't know, because it's not, I guess wines made in California would be my guess, since most wines or many wines are made outside of the United States. I'm guessing these are mostly like California based wines.
Ooh, so what it is, they're promoting a good number of these are vineyards that are owned by veterans.
Well, yeah, but this is to support U.S. vets, which I think is nice, because the U.S. government certainly isn't supporting veterans for the most part. So I don't even think that's a bad idea. So it's an exceptional new wine experience for proud Americans. In our partnership with Fox News, we work with independent producers who make wine the right way, crafted with pride, rooted in tradition, and shared without pretense. Taste the bounty of America from coast to heartland. So yeah, I am right. It is all American wines, which again is great. Buy American. Love that. Sip small batch wines from homegrown talents across the nation. Napa to New York, Washington to Texas. I know I love to kick back and enjoy a Texas wine. I don't even think I've ever heard of a Texas wine, and beyond. You'll uncork a great American story with every bottle. I bet the story of how you hit your wife with the bottle after you drank the whole thing by yourself. And it does support U.S. vets. A portion of each wine club case purchase supports U.S. vets' vital mission to prevent and end veteran homelessness. So I'm making fun of it, but like overall, I'm sure I'm missing something. But overall, on the surface, looks nice. It's a way to support veteran-owned vineyards. The money goes back to fighting homelessness amongst veterans, which is a huge problem in America. And it's, supporting American-made businesses with a product that you would probably consume anyway. So, you know what? Why not? Free plug for the Fox Wine News Shop. All right, moving on. Oh, and then also, this is another thing. Another thing was for Disrupt. I'm participating in this Epstein Easter egg hunt that Disrupt is doing. It's just an event to create more visibility around Disrupt, obviously, fundraise and community, because you're going out to Washington Square Park and you're doing things in person. So yeah, it's Washington Square Park. It starts at 11 a.m. on Saturday, April 4th. It's the day before Easter, obviously. Like, they weren't going to do it on Easter Sunday. They know many people got places to go, people to see. But it's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's supposed to be a fun but educational experience where you get together with fellow New Yorkers and you learn little known facts about the Epstein files. And each Easter egg, I believe, reveals someone else mentioned in the Epstein files. I'm going to do more work with it. We're shooting a promo for it this Friday. So I'll report back next week. And I think we're going to have Carlos on soon. He has soccer practice on Wednesdays. So I tried to get him on this week. And he said, "Is there any other day? I have soccer practice on Wednesdays." I said, "Carlos, I love you." What a 28-year-old response. But again, like, I think it's really great. He's getting out there and young people, and it was really nice when I first talked with him, because I was like, I'm 40, he's 28. He's a person of color. I'm, white or Jewish, depending on which hate group you ask. And I thought it was really interesting that we were so, without ever talking to each other before, just having a mutual love for politics and to want to make America great again, but for real. And, our first conversation was just so interesting, because I was kind of, and this is my bias, I was expected to be hit with a lot of talking points that I feel like are pretty, like, fuck you if you're on the right, die and go to hell forever. And it was not like that at all. We really, really shared a lot of the same ideas for how to resuscitate this party. And it just made me so happy. So again, a rather new person in my life, but I'm excited to hear more. All right, let's move on to the enemy of the state. This week's enemy of the state is Kari Lake. Okay, guys. Kari Lake Halperin is an American political figure and former television news anchor who you might know her best from her work as serving as the senior advisor to the United States Agency for Global Media since March 2025. And what is happening right now, you might have heard of this by Donald Trump putting people from this news organization called Voice of America, putting them on political leave. That's where you might know these names from. Alfred, the crotch licking on camera is insane. I don't know if you guys have ever had a boy dog. They love crotch licking. So Voice of America journalists allege Trump is making news outlet a propaganda source. Some journalists at Voice of America charged a lawsuit Monday that the Trump administration, while largely shutting down the government-run outlet that provides news around the world, has turned what remains into a voice for propaganda. And obviously, when you look into Voice of America, it's pretty clear that Trump, did away with them or put them on leave because they were really dedicated to exposing things that he does. When you look it up, Voice of America, and what's the reason he had the ability to do that is because it's government funded, right? So Voice of America is a U.S. government funded international multimedia broadcaster that provides news, information, and cultural programming to worldwide audiences, particularly in countries without a free press. Which again, when we talk about it could be worse, or it very soon could be the same. But it's like, did we even know this organization existed? Like, we take things like this for granted because we do here in America have a free press. And I'm not talking about Barry Weiss's free press. I'm talking about the actual literal free press founded in 1942 to combat Nazi propaganda. It serves as a source of objective, accurate news, reaching over 300 million people weekly in nearly 50 languages. So it's so important. And when you think that the Trump administration is putting a place like that on leave, that literally was started to combat Nazi propaganda. I mean, eye-opening. Again, censorship, control, really crazy shit. The lawsuit alleges that Voice of America transmissions to populations in Iran, China, North Korea, and to Kurdish populations are not being run as objective news sources as required by law. And that's why it's so important that specific news sources, like called news sources, i.e. not social media, still exist, even if you partake and intake news from other places, because social media right now, maybe we'll see more, especially with the social media lawsuit that went down today, as far as social media being legally proven to be addictive. But right now, social media does not have the same laws surrounding it that traditional news sources have, which is why it is so much harder to pass along misinformation. But this is I think this article, I barely saw it anywhere, and I thought this was so interesting. Instead, they parrot White House talking points, and we know that the White House government website, as we check in on periodically on this show, is full of wild shit. Last week, we went over their misinformation about the spread of COVID-19 that has not been scientifically proven, but is on the website as if it is fact. Instead, they parrot White House talking points and suppress news.
You're on.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, guys. Well, obviously, I was in my head. I was like, oh man, I'm on a roll. I got the flow. I'm in the flow state. I'm saying everything I want to say. And then I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, it just froze. It just froze. Well, it wouldn't be without a country if it didn't freeze at one point. So, this is fun. Honestly, maybe it's the Trump administration hating that we are talking about our rights as news consumers. Not even consumers, our right as people in the country. So let me see where I was. Let's start from here. I'm sorry if I'm replaying this again, but Mike, did you hear me talk about how this was the Voice of America was literally started to fight against Nazi propaganda? Did you hear that whole part?
Yeah, that was early in you covering this. I think where we left off was you saying the regulations on what's real news versus social media.
Okay, yeah. And so basically that's why, even if you are taking in some information or from social media, while I always say please complement it with a finding that you can trace back to some kind of news source that must abide by the law. Because right now, social media, as we saw, it might start to, as we saw with the social media lawsuit today, which was more about addiction, and we'll get into that later. That is a main story, but it's all about it just doesn't have the same laws that traditional journalistic sources must abide by, and I think it's really important that we still have these sources that must abide by these laws. So I'm going to go back. The lawsuit alleges that VOA transmissions to populations in Iran, China, North Korea, and to Kurdish populations are not being run as objective news sources as required by law. Instead, they parrot White House talking points. And then I went on a whole thing about how we know those are not reliable based on last week's deep dive onto the White House government website, where they said 100% that COVID-19 started from the Wuhan lab, which has not been scientifically proven by anybody, and suppress news that the administration wishes to downplay, according to the lawsuit filed Monday with the U.S. District Court in Washington. In response to the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which runs the Voice of America, said that taxpayer money must support broadcasting that reflects U.S. policy and the interests of the American people. The latest dispute reflects differing views between journalists and President Donald Trump's administration, which has promoted friendly outlets that rarely offer more than gentle questioning, most notably at the Pentagon. A federal judge last week ordered hundreds of VOA journalists who had been placed on paid leave for the past year be put back to work, saying Trump's pick to run the USA GM, Kari Lake, exceeded her authority. How crazy. Seems to be a pattern then in that administration. The administration is appealing that ruling. Voice of America, which has beamed its broadcasts across the world since World War II, was designed to showcase freedom of the press to countries where there is no such tradition, but which is like so beautifully American. And where has that gone? Like, I feel like what America is has been buried so deep that many Americans, including myself, until we read this article today, didn't even know about this. But instead of operating that way, VOA journalists Barry Newhouse, Aisha Tanzim, Dong Hyuk Lee, and Ksenia Turkova say Trump loyalists have been put in place to direct what is reported on the few VOA transmissions that remain. For example, coverage of the Iran war sent into that country has not included any news of death tolls from U.S. airstrikes or the perspectives of political and world leaders outside of the administration, while the bombing of an elementary school was barely mentioned, the lawsuit said. The Lake-appointed official overseeing Persian, Kurdish, and Afghan services has said all guest appearances on broadcasts must be approved by him. Through VOA's journalism, those living in authoritarian societies get a taste of democracy, the plaintiff said in a statement. Without editorial integrity, VOA will be no different than government mouthpieces our audiences already hear in their own country. The administration has questioned whether taxpayers should foot the bill for transmission of opinions that go against American interests. Lake, in congressional testimony last year, suggested the traditional firewall between the government and journalists at agencies like Voices of America and Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, be eliminated. We should be able to have control over what kind of content goes out, she said. It should be in alignment with our foreign policy. The Agency for Global Media, quote, is responsible for oversight of its networks, including Voice of America, and for ensuring compliance with the VOA Charter, which requires authoritative, accurate journalism that is reflective of and clearly presents U.S. policies, the agent said in a statement Monday. The VOA journalists were supported in their lawsuit Monday by the organizations PEN America and Reporters Without Borders. So again, I think that's one of the most important pieces that I read this week, and I really did not see it a lot of places. Moving on to Patreon, I want to thank everyone who is a Patreon subscriber. I want to thank everyone who listens to the show, but I really appreciate those of you who have become Patreon subscribers. If you have the income to do so, the disposable income, the couple dollars a month, I really appreciate that. I know your hard-earned money could go many places, and I really appreciate you spending it here on Without a Country. All hail our dictator, Christopher Fungi. Welcome our new capitalist pig, Ryan Mayer. Thank you so much for being here. And hello to all my capitalist pigs and all my cuties. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here and for helping to fund this show, even though sometimes everything crashes. It's not any reflection of the quality of the setup, I promise. It's all new stuff. Even the wires are new. I just, I don't exactly know what it is. I think it's my zodiac chart, according to the astrological reading I've had for 2026. All right, moving on to the wacko mailbag. If you want to send me an email, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. I've been getting a ton of emails lately, so please do not take it personally if I don't go to yours. I have usually a skeleton of things I want to talk about. So sometimes you send me something good, but it just kind of, this show is already so long. Sometimes it doesn't fit in the structure or themes of what I am talking about. This one, though, is from Wacko George, who I know you send me a lot of stuff and I appreciate it. This goes hand in hand with the conversation that I was really torn about having, but that has to do with separation of church and state, and how I was talking about this last week. I really, really believe Zohran Mamdani is doing a wonderful job, except when it comes to his separation of church and state, and how I feel like this is such a difficult conversation to have, because he is Muslim, but it could be part of the reason that he's going as hard as he is that he knows it's very hard to criticize Muslims right now. I know he talks a lot about how there is so much anti-Islam. And while that is true, it's also a really perfect time to, you know, excuse Islam from the other rules and regulations that are also not abided by. I want to put that out there by other political figures. Again, it's a perfect time when this weird version of Christianity is running rampant across the US to try and counteract that with Islam. But again, I just cannot say this enough. And I'm going to see my friend who works at Americans United for Separation of Church and State. We're marching at No Kings together on Saturday. And I really want to pick his brain about what his thoughts are on this. And I'll report back to you a little bit, because I feel like it's so difficult to talk about, especially as a Jew, even though I am not aligned with Israel. So I hope I wouldn't be, but I just feels weird. So George sent me this article that was an opinion piece from the Washington Post by a woman named Ayan Hirsi Ali. And I looked up who she is, and because that's very important, and I knew is going to speak to the kinds of things that she's talking about. I assumed from her name that she is Muslim. She grew up and was raised Muslim. She is Somali. Or would it be? No, she's or is it Somalian? She is a Somali. I think it's Somali. And she, and right now, she speaks a lot about Islam and how it negatively affects women and girls. So that's kind of, from the quick reading I'd done about her, that is the perspective that she's coming from. Because, you go, why is someone raised Muslim speaking out against, a mayor who is extremely open with his Islam, religious rituals. And so that explains why. Again, it's really important to know who's writing, because especially when you're reading an op-ed, right? So this says a religious asymmetry is unfolding in New York. New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani takes his Muslim identity seriously. So should we. Sorry, I think I have a producer coming in right now. So my dog is barking a lot, but I don't have to stop my thing. I called for tech help. Okay. So let's go back to this article. Of course, it was somehow. And Mike, do you have this pulled up, or what are you doing? Or no? Or where are you? Anyway, okay. So Zohran Mamdani swept into office on a democratic socialist platform. And a proud embrace of his Muslim identity. I am Muslim, I am a democratic socialist, and most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this. And listen, I heard all these things, and I just put a pin in them, right? I put a pin in them. Let's see. Okay. I refuse to apologize for any of this, he said in his victory speech. But while the New York mayor's economic proposals have been widely debated, there has been less examination of how his understanding of Islam shapes his statement and policies. New York contains more than 750,000 Muslims who make invaluable contributions to the city. It is also home to the largest Jewish community outside Israel and millions of Catholics. By American law and custom, Mamdani must be impartial to all three groups. Previous mayors have done just that. Rudy Giuliani governed as mayor of all New Yorkers, not as a Catholic. Michael Bloomberg likewise worked for all, not as a Jew. That is the standard against which Mamdani must be measured, and he fails it as his early choices show. And what I think is interesting about this is, I would argue that plenty of other political figures have been too influenced by their religion, but I would say they're mostly federal politicians. It's something that we see less of in municipal politics, and that's what makes this unique. I was trying to, remember, but, there are little things that I would also push back against. I'm sure Bloomberg and Giuliani were going to Christmas and Hanukkah events, right? And it's like we just probably wouldn't notice it as much because those are such culturally, accepted holidays that they almost can feel like social rather than religious. And again, I don't think that should be accepted either. I don't think government money should be doing this thing. If we want to do something like, and even to say like, the holiday season, I think at this point, the holiday season, like being in December, is pretty widely accepted, because that's how we've done the trifecta of Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and Christmas. But even so, then, if you are doing it from, overseeing it from a government perspective, to me, if I was in charge, I would be doing it as a time when, we do an extra amount of charity work as New Yorkers, starting with the Thanksgiving holiday, which is non-denominational, like that kind of thing. It is something that I would really hone in on. I guess non-denominational, unless you're a Jehovah's Witness, and then it's, then it's bad for you too. But something like that. Again, I don't think we should be having these like religious Christmas events. I don't think we should be having these Hanukkah events either. But we're just, it doesn't even almost tap into our radar at this point because it is so accepted societally. So I do want to like push that into this op-ed. With the Jewish community, Mamdani's record is striking. As a state assemblyman, he stopped co-sponsoring an annual resolution condemning the Holocaust. In his first hours as mayor, he reversed New York City's adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA, their definition of anti-Semitism, which we can look into that. I think he probably would have a point there. Stopping co-sponsoring an annual resolution condemning the Holocaust is interesting. As other political leaders condemned a crowd for chanting "We support Hamas" outside a synagogue in Queens, Mamdani remained silent until a question from a reporter forced a clipped response. Again, we went over that on this show. I didn't think it was crazy when it was reported that Mamdani's wife had liked Instagram posts celebrating the October 7th attack. Mamdani called her a private person. My thoughts on, Zohran Mamdani's wife are quite different. Do I think Zohran Mamdani's wife, Rama, hates Jews? Yeah, I do. I do. I don't think Zohran Mamdani particularly likes them either. But again, I'm going to say I'm comfortable with it. That's why I voted for him. If I thought it was actually going to be a problem, I would not have voted for him. So for me, my problem with his like conflation of like his Muslim identity and his politics is not anything to do with it being anti-Jewish. And I want to make that really clear. It is anti-American in that this country was founded to separate politics and religion. And I have this criticism of many, many people, including the entire Trump administration. All right. So I just want to make that very clear. That is my thoughts on this. He has called Israel an apartheid state, supports the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, and wants to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which I think is fine. Asked to condemn the inflammatory slogan, globalize the Intifada, Mamdani declined. He later promised to discourage use of the phrase. That one's questionable. Meanwhile, but again, it's like whatever again, how he feels in his heart and how he governs hopefully can be different. And I think that, he's in that testing period right now, as this op-ed suggests. She suggests he's already failing. I don't think that's true. But I think he probably needs to concentrate a little bit more on policies and a little bit less on religion. Meanwhile, Catholic New York has received a cold shoulder. About 1/3 of the metro area's adults are Catholic, the largest faith bloc in New York. They learned where they stood, not from any policy announcement, but from a conspicuously empty mayor's seat at St. Patrick's Cathedral. What are you doing? Showing me a picture of Rama? In February, Mamdani became the first New York mayor in at least a century to skip the installation mass for a new archbishop. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the departing archbishop, took the unusual step of saying he was ticked off by Mamdani's snub. He also criticized the lack of Catholics on Mamdani's transition team. I don't know that anyone is judging a team based on how many Catholics. I think it's probably a little bit more about like gender identity, gender expression, race, those kinds of things. But So I thought that was a bit of a reach. And quite honestly, I think the mayor's seat can always be empty at the mass for a new archbishop, but you can't cherry pick. It's like either you got to do everything or you got to do nothing, and that's my problem here, because I wouldn't be in that seat either. I'm not. I am not befriending religious leaders. I can work in conjunction with them if their congregation or whatever is experiencing religious-based hate, or their congregation is being ostracized or having problems because of their beliefs. Like, that's fine. I'm going to step in as a mayor then. But yeah, no, I'm not at religious ceremonies, period, hard stop. That's the absolute end of it. Mamdani has adopted a very different approach toward Islam. While discarding the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, he has stressed the threat of Islamophobia. And again, we've researched this on this show. If you're looking at numbers, they're actually pretty equal numbers-wise. So equal threats to the groups of people. He eschewed the Archbishop of New York, but was photographed with Siraj Wahhaj, a Brooklyn imam, who, though never charged, was named on a list of potential co-conspirators in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Mamdani's office celebrated World Hijab Day, describing as a powerful symbol of devotion, a garment that millions of women across the Islamic world are beaten, imprisoned, or killed for refusing to wear. And that's where you really see this journalist's, where she stands and what she has devoted her life to, because that is very personal to her. And I didn't catch when they celebrated World Hijab Day, and I understand why they did, but I'm going to agree with the writer on that one. In Mamdani's treatment of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim communities, it is possible to detect a basic religious asymmetry. Muslims' concerns are taken more seriously than those of Christians and Jews. And again, it's not surprising that we see that, because like many things on either side, it's an overcorrection from the past, right? So, because of how terribly Muslims were treated post 9/11, especially here in New York City, even though I feel like that was not true over the past couple of years, it is now time to correct that. He was, I'm guessing, I'm trying to do the math on our age difference here, but yeah, he was like he would have been a little boy, because I was in early high school. So he would have been like a little boy when 9/11 happened, and a little boy in New York City. So I can only imagine what he went through as a brown little boy post 9/11. And I'm sure there's a part of him that vowed that he was going to, make that good and make sure that, little brown boys in the future in New York City weren't treated like that. And so I really feel for his stance, but again, it's just like, what are we doing here? If anyone is going to really vouch for the separation of church and state, it has to be us on the left, especially someone as extreme left as him. And, when you even look at the tenets of the DSA, that is one thing that concerns me, because they are so, a big part of what they do is about Israel and Palestine. I do worry that sometimes that becomes like, and we're okay with, Islam being a part of our politics, but nothing else. Like I do, I'm concerned about that just as much as I'm concerned about crazy Christianity being a part of the Trump administration. And just as much as I am concerned with many Jewish organizations being like wildly pro-Israel and getting involved with MAGA, like has nothing to do with Judaism, the religion, So all of that bothers me. Shiite Islam makes hard metaphysical demands on its adherents. It is at odds with Mamdani's support for LGBTQ+ and abortion rights. It also, as is every major religion, it also runs counter to the post-colonial outlook with which Mamdani was raised. Post-colonial theory treats all claims of universal truth with deep suspicion. Every absolute, it insists, conceals a power relation. As Zohran's father, the post-colonial theorist Mahmoud Mamdani, has written, in certain circumstances, quote, the call for justice is really a slogan that masks a big power agenda. And again, I have plenty of problems with plenty of things Zohran's father has said, but he is not his father. And, I know they're just using it as an example. He's not his father. He's not his wife. Although I would argue your wife has probably more of an influence over like your current state of thinking, especially because they just got married. Now, this is not a guy who's been married to her for 20 years. So is Mamdani simply using his Islamic identity as a convenient political accessory while he governs as a secular progressive, or is he something more distinctive, a man in whom two militant worldviews, Islamism and socialism, are not fighting each other but fusing? And I think that's a really interesting question, right? But again, I would also say go read the tenets of the DSA specifically. And get back to me on it, because I don't know that like there is even any fusing necessary. Again, just food for thought, not hard stances. We're thinking, all right, everyone keep your knickers on. Mamdani has described the Palestinian struggle as the core of his politics, which is something I pointed out, which was the strangest thing I thought about why he is running for mayor. If that is the core of your politics, why the fuck are you running for mayor? You should be running for some kind of national seat. And the thing that drew him to the Democratic Socialists of America. By emphasizing his Muslim heritage, he identifies with the oppressed. His asymmetric treatment of different religious groups thus reflects a broader theory of which groups are colonizers and which are colonized. The Iranian philosopher Abdul Karim Saroush has distinguished the Islam of identity from the Islam of truth. The former deploys religion as cultural armor while shorting its metaphysical claims. Mamdani exemplifies one powerful version of the Islam of identity. This views Islam primarily not as a set of religious teachings, but as an oppressed identity that can serve as a locus of resistance. Very interesting. This has serious consequences. 2 young men were recently arrested outside Gracie Mansion, the mayoral residence, and faced terrorism charges for an alleged Islamic State-inspired bomb plot. Mamdani's first response was to condemn by name the anti-Islam activists they targeted before vaguely criticizing the bombers themselves. He appears linguistically helpless before jihadist violence, perhaps because naming it would require conceding something his coalition will not accept. That such violence can arise for reasons internal to a tradition, not merely as a reaction to Western provocation. In normal times, this might not matter. These are not normal times. America is at war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. New York is the city that lost nearly 3,000 people on September 11th. It is a symbol of everything the Islamist imagination has spent decades promising to destroy: materialism, hedonism, capitalism. As the West confronts Islamism, Mamdani will have to make clear where he stands. So again, I thought there was a lot, like, some of this stuff I thought was, reaching. And many of those things we went over on this show before. Many of these things were reaching. And again, such a disservice is being done by many Jewish groups and many people on the right who just absolutely everything Mamdani does, they have crazy Islamic phobic things to say in response. Therefore, when we actually have a concern about where religion and politics intertwine, it's very hard to bring up without looking Islamophobic, and it's fucking annoying. And I'm fucking pissed at a lot of these Jewish groups for doing that. And I thought this was an interesting thing to send in this week because there was some drama, in New York this week surrounding, stuff that was going on with Zohran. And it was about his wife, Rama Douaji, and this Palestinian writer named Susan Abu Hawa, right? And so First Lady Rama Douaji provided an illustration for an essay that Abu Hawa, sorry if I'm butchering that, compiled as part of a collection from writers in Gaza, a book called Every Moment is a Life, Gaza in the Time of Genocide, right? And we know this is completely aligned with the work that Rama has been doing. Her Instagram is very clear, very open. Great. That's her. She's an artist. She can do that separately. This was first reported by the Washington Free Beacon and immediately became a story. So Mamdani said that Douaji had been commissioned by a third party and had never engaged with or met Abu Hawa, a claim that Abu Hawa herself later confirmed, right? And the reason this is a problem that the First Lady of New York City illustrated for this particular Palestinian writer is because she said crazy things. Okay, literally, I went to Al Jazeera, and even they reported quote by quote some really crazy things she said about Jews. And so I was like, if Al Jazeera is reporting this, like, we got nothing. Because again, I was like, let me fact check this. Let me make sure. Let me go to Al Jazeera. Let me make sure this is not some kind of like propaganda. Make sure this is stuff that she really said. Make sure it wasn't taken out of context. Although some things that she said are pretty hard to take out of context. And, they were so heinous that when I tried to have ChatGPT summarize them for me, it wouldn't even tell me what she said. I literally had to download Claude and explain to it that I myself am Jewish and I'm not looking for hateful words against Jews. I mean, it might have given it to me anyway, but that's how I started my relationship. I said, listen, I'm not looking for to spread hate speech. That is not my point. But I said, ChatGPT, apparently the things that this writer have said were so heinous that it wouldn't even write it out. So I said, Claude, can you please tell me? And Claude told me. All right. So the documented statements from this writer, Susan, Abu Hawa, are pretty extensive on social media. She has used terms, and again, this was all seconded by Al Jazeera. She has used terms like Jewish supremacist vampires to describe Jews, rootless, soulless ghouls, dual loyalty Zionists. In one post, she quoted another user who asked whether everyone in the U.S. government was Jewish or married to a Jew, and added her own commentary calling Jews parasites on earth. And I'm sure, and I saw a number of my friends and colleagues liking these things. So really just interesting times we're living in. She also wrote, quote, "These sons of Satan will taste what they meted to us," and called one commentator a Jewish supremacist cockroach. More recently, and again, some of this is like whatever, but if we used anyone else's religion or ethnicity using this language, it wouldn't be accepted, I guess, is the argument, right? Not to say that I see plenty of Jews spewing hatred daily. It's disgusting, very bad, and it makes all Jews look bad, please. More recently, in an interview after Mamdani's rebuke, and this is where it all came from, because Mamdani publicly came out and said that the words that that this writer had said were reprehensible. And then, this writer came on and she's like, I feel like I'm, a political tool at this point. And this is one of those instances where everyone was unhappy because people who felt like Zohran Mamdani already didn't like Jews were like, oh, this is too little too late. And then people who love that he might not like Jews were like, oh, you're turning on your people. We know that you believe this privately. So, it was an instance where he absolutely can't win. And he was kind of cornered and had to speak out on this person that honestly he shouldn't have been forced to speak out on, because it was just people digging about social media and his wife. I will say that he really had no dirt brought up on him, no, they couldn't find any dirt on him when he was running for office. Like the Cuomo, they couldn't find jack shit on Zohran Mamdani. He, slid into Gracie Mansion pretty unscathed. And I think now that they realize he's pretty clean, they've resorted to looking into his wife, who, more her views are a little more open, a little less polished. But, as is Gen Z, as is life of an artist, and again, we didn't elect her. So she's allowed to have her opinions. And I really stand by that. She's allowed to hate Jews if she wants to. She can hate Jews in her bed at Gracie Mansion. I really don't have a problem with that, but it just can't bleed into Zohran Mamdani's politics. More recently, in an interview after Mamdani's rebuke, she said, I think no words, no terrible words should be spared for these monsters because they are monsters, referring to Jewish Americans. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like she needs to be a little more specific because, like, yeah, there are plenty of Israeli monsters, Benjamin Netanyahu being one of them, who are monsters and should rightly be described as monsters. And that's fine. She has also written that she doesn't give a shit if people collapse the distinction between Zionists and Jews. And then the response was Mamdani called her comments reprehensible and patently unacceptable. After that, Abu Hawa posted that she had received an outpouring of support following Mamdani's unfortunate capitulation to Zionist power. And I think that's true. I think she probably sold a ton of copies of her books, and anyone who was mad about it wasn't going to buy her book anyway. So it just probably helped her from a capitalistic standpoint, because I saw a lot of people in the comments being like, I'm going to buy all your works tonight. So great. Some of Mamdani's own supporters pushed back on him, saying his response risked reinforcing harmful narratives that conflate support for Palestinians with anti-Semitism. And again, I did check all this stuff, fact check this in numerous sources, including an article from Al Jazeera called Why is NYC's Mamdani Facing Criticism Over Responses to Attack on His Wife? I will say, Mamdani, I know we think he's more than a man, but he is just a man. And his wife might be his weak spot. Like, it might be his Achilles heel. We haven't really found an Achilles heel for Zohrans Mamdani yet. And I've been thinking for a while, I think it might be his wife. And she's gorgeous. I get it. I could definitely, she has that type of quiet, like feminine power that I really do feel like he absolutely adores her, and I don't want to say is subservient to her, but like is a golden retriever husband to her, which is lovely, except for when you're mayor of New York and her views are starting to bleed into yours. Similarly to the Clintons, when, I think some people worried that perhaps Hillary Clinton had too much power over Bill Clinton. Although I think, Zohran is much more of a golden retriever. How much of a golden retriever can you be if you're, fucking the intern? I guess not a lot. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. Again, open to anyone's thoughts and opinions. And I don't want to feel like I have to walk on eggshells about it, but it's just, as a New Yorker and as someone who is so loud about separation of church and state, it's been driving me fucking crazy. All right, so municipal politics. Let's move on to the other side of the country, and let's talk about the Los Angeles mayor's race, because I think this is really important. As we know, Karen Bass, very unliked. She is the incumbent. She only has about a 19.5% approval rating. Spencer Pratt, from reality TV, is in second place, far enough behind, but not nearly far enough behind that we shouldn't be very, very, very worried about Spencer Pratt becoming mayor of Los Angeles, right? He's polling at about 10%. I guess we can look at, Mike, if you want to look at Polymarket, that might be interesting. And then very close behind Spencer Pratt, and that's what I want to talk about today. Because I agree. I don't think Karen Bass is, doing a particularly great job. I know a lot of Los Angelinos are upset with her. And, the only names that I've kind of been hearing are Karen Bass and Spencer Pratt. And so I wanted to offer to you a third option who can definitely beat a Spencer Pratt, I think. And, possibly with your support as feet on the ground, can become, Los Angeles's answer to Karen Bass and Los Angeles's, version of Zohrans Mamdani, which is what many people are saying. Again, I have to read more on her, but I think she does seem interesting, and it's just not a name that I'm hearing enough. So rising progressive star, this is from the New York Times. Rising progressive star shakes up race for Los Angeles mayor. Nithya Raman, who has been compared to Mayor Zohrans Mamdani of New York, presents a significant challenge to the incumbent Mayor Karen Bass. And it's only March now, and this could be a possibility. So again, like, feet on the ground, people, like, this is the kind of stuff that you do if you're in Los Angeles, have a lot more control over than this national mess we're in right now. So Nithya Raman, a rising star among West Coast progressives and a Los Angeles City Council member, announced on Saturday, and this was back in February, that she will run for the city's top office. And so that's pretty impressive that she's already, she's polling at like a little over 9% right now. And she only announced in February. Because I think if we look back to February for Zohran Mamdani, who announced in October of the previous year, I don't know that he was polling at 9%. He might have been by February, but it was really the last few months leading up to the primaries for him. So maybe, I don't think by February. Not by February. He wouldn't have been, or March. Anyway, so maybe by March he was, but like this is still, my point being, this is still really, really doable, but we need movers and shakers on the ground, right? So shaking up a race in the nation's second largest city that appeared to be all but settled and posing a formidable generational challenge to her former ally, Mayor Karen Bass. Ms. Raman, and she's 44, which I think is great because a little older, but she looks super young. She looks super modern, who has been compared. And good news for me if I want to run again, because I'm like, I'm 40. I'm already not cool anymore, even though being in your 40s is cool as hell. And I feel like I've never even like looked cooler. So Ms. Raman, 44, who has been compared to New York politicians Mayor Zohran Mamdani and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, made her unexpected announcement just hours before the city's noon filing deadline, saying that while she deeply respected the mayor, fundamental issues from housing costs to broken streetlights had made the city increasingly unlivable for families. And she also probably saw, oh fuck, Spencer Pratt is actually making a splash here. People do need something new. After the wildfires, people are absolutely, rightly so, upset with Karen Bass. There's a spot for me to win this year. I'm already on the city council. Let's go, right? Los Angeles is at a breaking point, said Ms. Raman, who first won office with the support of, you guessed it, the Democratic Socialists of America, which helped elect, and I'm sure they were in her ear too. Don't think that they weren't. They're everywhere. They're like Scientologists or PETA, which helped elect Mr. Mamdani on a similar platform, and people feel it in the most basic ways. Her entry capped a week in which several serious contenders dropped from the race or announced that they would remain on the sidelines. On Thursday, Austin Butner, a former Los Angeles school superintendent and well-known civic leader, stepped back, citing the recent death of his 22-year-old daughter. Affair. The same day, Rick Caruso, a billionaire developer who had lost to Ms. Bass in 2022, confirmed that he would not seek a rematch. And late Friday, Lindsay Horvath, a county supervisor whose district includes the affluent communities ravaged by the Palisades fire last January, said she had decided against a run. The announcements had appeared to create a clear path for the re-election of Ms. Bass, 72, a nationally known Democrat, former member of Congress and Los Angeles native, whose popularity fell precipitously last year after it emerged that she was out of the country when the Palisades fire erupted. Without the other establishment leaders on the ballot, her most potent contenders would have been political newcomers: Spencer Pratt, the millennial reality television villain, and Palisades fire victim, who has become one of Governor Gavin Newsom's loudest critics, Adam Miller, a tech executive and co-founder of an affordable housing nonprofit, and Ray Huang, a housing advocate who is challenging Ms. Bass from the left. Ray Huang also looks really interesting, but I, even though I was very interested in Ray's campaign, I did feel it smartest strategically to talk about, Ms. Raman, because I think she is the one who really can, win this, if that's what you guys are interested in. Ms. Bass's approval ratings, even though I do not, I'm not like saying if it starts that, the DSA now has a chokehold on everything, that's also not what I'm looking for. Ms. Bass's approval ratings have improved as she has fought immigration crackdowns and defied the Trump administration in the heavily liberal city. And Los Angeles has demonstrably rebounded since 2022, when she inherited a pandemic wasteland of emptied business districts, smash and grab robberies, and sprawling tent camps. On her watch, unsheltered homelessness has declined for 2 years. But internal polls shared by would-be challengers still reflect a desire for fresh leadership in the city, which now confronts other problems. And I think obviously a city like Los Angeles, is for someone like Zohran Mamdani, he has, 11.5 million Instagram followers. That's more people than even live in New York City. So obviously, this is someone who has been being watched not only around the country but around the nation. And I think for a city like Los Angeles that is so often compared to New York in many of the things that people go there to pursue, once Los Angeles saw this Zohran Mamdani win, I'm sure it gets a lot of the constituents thinking, well, why can't we have something like that here too, right? So it makes a campaign like this a lot more possible. So the other problems that they have are skyrocketing housing costs, crushing municipal lawsuits, crumbling infrastructure, the show business contraction, widespread displacement from last year's wildfires, and a politically hostile White House, all as millions of visitors prepare to descend for this year's World Cup and the 2028 Olympics. This city welcomed me and my husband and gave us opportunities beyond what I could have ever imagined, said Ms. Raman, who was born in India and is the mother of 10-year-old twins and the wife of a television producer and screenwriter, Vali Chandrasekaran. But I am afraid that the city is no longer a place of opportunity. And so a lot of things that are positioning her, number one, to be similar to Zohran Mamdani, but also perfect for Los Angeles. So, right, like Zohran is, artists live in New York. Artists also live in Los Angeles, right? Zohran's mom is Mira Nair. This woman's husband is a television producer and screenwriter. So going to be thinking about artists, going to be thinking about, all the financial contributions that the entertainment business make to Los Angeles. So like this really seemingly is, almost the same exact template in many ways. But I'm afraid that the city is no longer a place of opportunity. Again, such a similar talking point, but really shared feeling by so many Americans across the country. And, she's an immigrant. And so again, we go back to also things that are hot right now. So being an immigrant, hot right now, right? Because anytime a group of people is being oppressed, we see that, we see that group not only win Oscars, but also just, get so much support around them. So really great time to run. And I think specifically great time to run, we talked about this with Zohran, for brown people. Again, it's like it feels weird to say, but like to have this conversation and pretend that some of it is not in things that are out of our control is foolish. We love optics. We love optics, and this is part of it. And I'm not saying that like it is merely optics that she is immigrant. Obviously not. That's part of who she is. That is part of what will speak to her policy and make her a great advocate for immigrants in a time when they are being terrorized, but also important in the optics of a campaign. And believe me, a campaign is about 80% optics. Ms. Raman swept into office in 2020, not long after the coronavirus pandemic upended the lives of Americans. And as millions protested racial injustice, Los Angeles' housing crisis felt insurmountable, and homelessness had been on the rise. Part of a restive and progressive generation of political newcomers, Ms. Raman, sorry, I have to look that up, and I keep saying ramen like the noodle, but I can't, I don't think it would be that, sought to harness the power of the city's largest and rising population of renters, a new development in a place where single family homeowners had historically held sway. She was armed with an undergraduate degree in political theory from Harvard and a master's degree in urban planning from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and had experience working in the slums of India. When she was elected, upsetting an incumbent with the help of grassroots volunteers who knocked on tens of thousands of doors in the district, so the same kind of MO, she had received more votes than any council member in the city's history. So that to me tells me she has the field team and knowledge to possibly win this election. Field, if you're running for office, most important part of it. And field is great because while, the campaign with the most money usually wins, it doesn't always win. And field teams are great because if you get enough people on your side, you can get free field team members. You can get volunteers to knock on doors. But that means that you have to be an extremely compelling candidate. And it is possible. It is possible. After a bruising political fight over redistricting in 2021, she represents a district that encompasses a diverse array of neighborhoods, including some where immigrants live in dense apartments and some in the fast-growing San Fernando Valley, where wealthy Hollywood executives live in hillside bungalows. And it's great because she can speak to the immigrants. She can also speak to the powerful executives in hillside bungalows through her husband. That diversity, Ms. Raman said, has given her unique insight into the needs of vastly different communities in the city of nearly 4 million. As part of the 15-member city council, she is among the nation's most powerful local officials. And like Ms. Bass, whose involvement in politics grew out of her years as a community organizer in South Los Angeles and a physician assistant confronting the crack epidemic in the 1980s, Ms. Raman has remained in close touch both with the Democratic establishment and the majority and minority city's grassroots. Though separated in age by decades, the two officials share a similar charisma and pragmatism, and they have aligned philosophically on issues such as the importance of helping homeless people move out of encampments before helping them find longer-term housing. In 2024, when Ms. Raman ran for re-election, Ms. Bass's endorsement anchored her mailers and campaign videos. And again, this is in politics, we often see the protege or the person under someone ultimately challenge them in later years. And some of it's age, some of it's because they learned from them, but then added their own unique twist to it. They saw what their mentor was doing wrong, and they said, "I can fix these things." Like, this is unfortunately just how it goes. Less than 2 weeks ago, you can look at it about how, again, we want to do a pop culture comparison, which I think is super helpful. I know a lot of times I do relationship comparisons, but I'm in like a pop culture comparison mood today. So you can look at it as Karen Bass is Paris Hilton. And Ms. Raman is Kim Kardashian. So even though Kim Kardashian used to work for Paris Hilton, now Kim Kardashian is much more powerful than Paris Hilton, even though Paris Hilton remains powerful and is classic, iconic, original influencer in many ways, really, inventor of the selfie. But Kim Kardashian, I think we could argue, perhaps, perfected the selfie, right? Less than 2 weeks ago, Ms. Raman endorsed Ms. Bass's re-election campaign. Dun, dun, dun. The mayor and I are very aligned on our values, Ms. Raman said in an interview shortly before her announcement. I think both of us really care about the city's most vulnerable. We want the city to shine. But she said poorly executed policies and red tape had complicated progress on issues from affordable housing to potholes and change, or the DSA sent her an email being like, "Hey, do you want to run?" And changes in the way Los Angeles County had decided to work with the city on homelessness. A signature priority for Ms. Bass has led to a system that lacks clear ownership and accountability, she said, and is leaving people stuck in crisis while the city cycles from emergency to emergency. We're asking residents to accept less while paying more, and calling that normal, she said. It isn't. She also alluded to recent claims that Ms. Bass directed the city's fire department to tone down a review of the Palisades fire, which destroyed thousands of homes and killed 12 people. Though the mayor, who also has a fiduciary duty to protect taxpayers from municipal lawsuits, has vehemently denied any wrongdoing, the assertions have pummeled her politically. Los Angeles needs a mayor who's going to take responsibility for the whole system, she said. Who is going to prepare for emergencies before they happen? Who is going to communicate honestly when things go wrong and fix them? Sorry, need a producer's help right now. Ms. Raman has attracted support both from the city's tech and entertainment industry and small dollar donors. And she is expected to appeal both to younger voters angry about affordability and to moderate conservative voters in Pacific Palisades who blame Ms. Bass, among others, for the city fire department's inadequate preparation last year. Her support in the city's most left-leaning pockets is likely to draw from Ms. Bass's base and force the election into a runoff in November. Much of the city's labor and business establishment, including the powerful police union, however, have lined up behind the mayor, who still maintains a deep reservoir of personal goodwill. On the council, Ms. Raman has generally sided with a block of progressive members, but has also broke with them to push a reform to the city's mansion tax on the sale of high-value properties, arguing that it was complicating the construction of apartments. A campaign advisor to Ms. Bass, Douglas Herman, pointed out that Ms. Raman had cast a number of votes against measures that the city's middle class supported, including critical funding last year. And I think New York Post like put out an article, like a hit piece on her, of course, that whizzed by me earlier today, saying that like her house was like $2 million, which, you know, I know seems like a lot, but in Los Angeles, like a $2 million house, like, you know, certainly lovely and beautiful, but it's not like, oh my God, this is like a billionaire. This is Jeff Bezos. This is someone who's doing well. This is a 44-year-old successful woman who is married to another successful guy, right? Like at a certain point, like, you know, like it's like, yes, we want the people representing the people, but I think it's also okay that people who have found success are like running for office. But you know, you do definitely have to keep an eye on where they're voting, and it's like, are you voting for you personally and your taxes and everything that's, you know, going on with you personally and your friends, or do you actually care, you know, about thinking of, you know, what the state you were in when you moved to the city, right? Because that's how I'm going across things, like about things. I'm going about things by kind of thinking like, oh, you know, I'm doing okay now, but I don't know that many other people could take the path towards success that I took when I moved here in 2003. And I want that to be possible for everyone. Like, I don't want to gatekeep success. Can you, I need to plug in my, and it's not going to reach here. So is there a plug over here that you can plug it in? Cause my computer's going to die. The last thing Los Angeles needs is a politician who opposed cleaning up homeless encampments and efforts to make our city safer, he said. Mayor Bass will continue changing LA by building on her track record, delivering LA's first sustained decrease in street homelessness, a 6-year low in homicides, and the most aggressive agenda our city has ever seen to make our city more affordable. And I think it's unfortunate because it seems like Karen Bass has done a lot of good things, but unfortunately with the Palisades fires, that is an instance where, you know, that was a pretty big thing. And it's not necessarily how a leader handles expected things, but perhaps how they navigate the unexpected. That is the true measure of their ability to lead, right? Anyone can prepare for the expected. All right. What's wrong? There's no place to plug it in. Okay, well, let me just move. How close do I need to get? Sorry, my computer is going to die, everyone. It's okay? Okay. All right, now let's move on to our main stories. We've spent a lot of time on municipal politics, but we haven't spent a long time on them in a while. And I just thought there was a lot of really interesting stuff going on. And
you're up.
Okay, this is just going to be a super fun episode. Well, for Mike to edit, really. Okay, so let's get into our next article, which is our main story. So we have two main stories today. One, of course, is ICE now has been deployed at airports, and the social media addiction trial, which I just think is so fascinating. Alfred, you're being such a good boy. Oh my God, what a cutie. What a cutie. Okay. He's so smart. He knows that when my ring light is on, that means I'm working, and he will just like sit still. And as soon as I turn it off, he knows that he can get SNACKSs. Okay, so ICE at airports. Let's talk about it. We're going to talk about it first from the perspective of the left. This is a New York Times article, and again, we'll see. ICE agents are now patrolling U.S. airports. Here's what to know. The deployment comes as a battle over Department of Homeland Security funding has led to closed security checkpoints, long lines, and missed flights. A lot of people, you know, kind of say it's like, okay, well, why do we have the money for ICE and not the money to pay TSA when they are both overseen by the Department of Homeland Security? And while I am sure it is true that there are different allocations for each group, and even though they are both under the same umbrella, that's not exactly the way budgeting works. It does seem pretty sus, you know? Up to 150 immigration and customs enforcement officers were deployed at airports across the United States on Monday a move that the Trump administration said was an effort to address long lines amid a shortage of Transportation Security Administration agents who are working without pay during the partial government shutdown. ICE officers' exact duties at airports remained unclear. Officers were seen on Monday at several airports, walking in small groups through check-in areas and standing near exits, their faces mostly unmasked. Unlike TSA agents, ICE personnel are being paid. Democratic lawmakers and the union representing TSA officers denounced the deployment of ICE to airports as disruptive, unsafe, and unhelpful. Here's what travelers need to know. Why are ICE agents being sent to airports? The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement on Sunday that ICE would help bolster TSA efforts to keep our skies safe and minimize air travel disruptions, which, it seems like it's going great. LaGuardia is, things are crashing, things are going down. I mean, I think that happened right before, though, right? I'm trying to think in the timeline of things. I think that was on Sunday. Let's see. The shortage of TSA personnel stems from the ongoing partial government shutdown. Nearly 50,000 TSA officers have been working without pay since February 14th, when funding for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees the TSA, lapsed amid a congressional standoff over immigration enforcement. Many TSA officers have taken on second jobs to pay their bills, sometimes calling out of work to do so, and more than 400 officers have quit since the shutdown began. DHS said on Monday. Nearly 12% of TSA officers called out of work on Sunday, the highest rate so far during the shutdown. That includes about 42% of officers at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport, and more than 37% at Kennedy Airport in New York City. The shortage has led to long security lines that have snaked out of terminals, causing some travelers to miss flights. The administration has said that using ICE agents to perform non-screening roles like guarding exits would allow the TSA to focus on staffing security checkpoints. Critics of the ICE deployment argue that it will not alleviate security lines and is instead intended to pressure Democrats to pass funding for DHS without the changes to immigration enforcement that they have called for. And obviously, it's not to help. We're not dumb. Where is ICE being deployed? The administration has not released a list of airports where it is sending ICE agents, but they were spotted on Monday at major hubs, including Hartsfield-Jackson, Chicago O'Hare, and LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark Liberty in the New York area, as well as smaller facilities like William P. Hobby Airport in Houston. What are the agents doing? So far, ICE officers have been seen walking through airports and observing, but not actively assisting with passenger screening. I'm sure they're doing nothing, they're mulling about, In an interview on Sunday with CNN, Tom Homan, President Trump's chief border official, suggested that ICE agents would play a limited role in security operations. I don't see an ICE agent looking at an X-ray machine because they're not trained in that, he said. But an ICE agent could cover an exit, allowing TSA officers to focus on screening, he said. But also on Sunday, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy told ABC News that ICE agents could take a more active approach. They know how to pat people down, he said. They know how to run the X-ray machines. Can you imagine getting patted down by ICE? Fuck no. Fuck no. Aaron Barker, the president, oh my God, those rapists? Wow. Aaron Barker, the president of the TSA Employees Union in Georgia, pushed back on the assertion, saying that ICE agents can't do what a TSA officer is doing with screening passengers. They don't have the training for that. Well, they don't have the training for anything. That's kind of the problem. Oh, also, Mike, a lot of people on like the far left, on the borderline anarchist accounts that I follow, have been doing fake interviews for ICE, and I really feel like you can do it. On March 31st, they're apparently having another I think it's an online job fair for ICE if you want to partake. ICE and TSA are both part of the Department of Homeland Security, but the shutdown does not affect ICE officers' pay because Congress funded immigration enforcement last year. There you go. And then it's like, how are they being affected? But they're not really doing anything yet. So right now, this basically just looks like a way to intimidate, a scare tactic, a bullying tactic. Again, really following the normal MO for the Trump administration. And, you know, on the right side of ICE, this is from Fox News, Trump scores massive court victory with appellate court ruling on ICE detention. And so illegal immigrants nabbed by ICE do not have to face bond hearings, a step that has become a potential legal impediment to President Donald Trump's mass deportation agenda, a second federal court found on Wednesday, today. The case involved Mexican national Joaquin Herrera Avila, who was captured in Minneapolis in August and failed to produce legal credentials authorizing his admission to the U.S. He was detained without bond and faced removal proceedings. Massive court victory against activist judges and for President Trump's law and order agenda, Attorney General Pam Bondi said after the St. Louis-based Eighth Circuit reversed a lower court's ruling and deemed many captured illegal immigrants ineligible for such chances to be released. A district court in Minnesota granted Avila's petition for habeas corpus or to challenge the legality of his detention, which the Trump administration challenged. We reversed and remand that ruling for proceedings consistent with this opinion. The Eighth Circuit ruled Wednesday in a split decision with George W. Bush appointed Judge Bobby Shepard of Arkansas writing for the majority. Shepard wrote that the district court relied on federal law allowing detention without bond for an alien who is an applicant for admission or seeking admission, while considering Avila to be no longer seeking formal admission because he had resided and worked in the U.S. for many years. But Avila did not seek further residency status, such as naturalization or asylum, according to the court, which ruled that aspect proved he was not seeking admission in a legal sense. And so this Eighth Circuit ruling concurs with a related ruling from the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit, which found that non-citizens can be held without bond, according to Bloomberg law. And so here we have the key decision that says illegal aliens already inside the U.S. can be detained without bond during removal proceedings. This is a massive victory for the deportation mission. Leftist judges can no longer force DHS to simply release invaders into our communities to commit more crimes. Huge L for open borders. And that is a quote by Gunther Eagleman, a right-wing commentator. And I find it problematic that a judge can even be classified as right or left because they should be following the law as written. Lawyers usually are pretty good at that. Lawyers I've interacted with, at least. But here we are. And, you know, as we talked about last week, as we kind of knew was coming, Mark Wayne Mullen officially sworn in. I don't know when did that happen exactly, but that's official now. I can't remember when that happened, but that's official. And
I know it hadn't happened by last show.
It hadn't. Okay. I was like, I couldn't remember the timeline, but I like kind of knew that it was seemingly definitely going to happen. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting moment for him to take over. Oh yeah, he took office on Tuesday. So he's officially sworn in at the Oval Office. And this is a quote for him. He said, "I don't care what color your state is, if you're red or you're blue. At the end of the day, my job is to be Secretary of Homeland and to protect everybody the same, and we will do that," he said. He did have there was some kind of a thing when I was looking into, Jewish stuff basically earlier today, that some people had problems with something that he did that was basically like presenting some kind of formal, I don't know if it was like legislation or formal document. I guess it wouldn't have been legislation, that Jews killed Jesus. So this guy hates Jews too, but like in a different way. So, that's maybe some people on the left will like that. John Fetterman did. And so it's
wait, like what?
The anti-Jewish thing, I believe.
You're saying Fetterman is anti-Jewish?
No, I'm not saying that he's anti-Jewish. I'm saying he liked that, I think. He's constantly breaking with other Democrats.
Well, I'm just confused. where Fetterman is where Fetterman factors into this.
I don't know. Maybe. Oh my God, there's so many things coming in. Maybe I'm conflating something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was an aside that doesn't matter. John Fetterman. I'm basically saying John Fetterman is one of these people who continuously tries to break with the Democrats. That's what I'm saying. I know, we know he loves Israel. Is that your point? Is that what bothered you? Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't.
Yes, John Fetterman loves
understand.
Israel. That's another way that he breaks with the Democrats.
Right. Okay.
Yes, no, John Fetterman, just to be very clear, because I know this is upsetting with Michael, does love Israel, but I do not love John Fetterman. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And the social media addiction trial. Very interesting. Very, very juicy stuff. Very juicy stuff. Okay. All right. So this is from NPR, and it's from the technology section, obviously. Jury finds Meta and Google negligent in social media harms trial. Now, this is something like, did you even hear that this was going on, Mike? Did you know that this trial was going on? I'm trying to think. I guess I did in the back of my mind, but it has been getting almost no coverage. And I think it's really interesting. Perhaps it wasn't being covered because they were unsure of how it was going to go.
Well, I mean, where would you see it covered? You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, obviously it's not something that people want a lot of traction on.
It's like Meta doesn't want a lot of traction on.
No,
it, so
I know.
like,
I know. You're not going to see it on social media.
Right. And that's where I get most of my news from.
Right. You and most Americans, but jury finds Meta and Google negligent in social media harms trial. A California jury on Wednesday, as in today, very breaking news, found that Meta and Google were to blame for the depression and anxiety of a woman who compulsively used social media as a small child. And I'm actually, even though I think it is extremely, pretty easy to prove that social media is addictive, I'm even floored that this single person got this much money because, as someone who is controlled by the algorithm at this point to sell tickets, which is, one of the main ways I make money, I'm like, I think I could get $6 million. Probably not, though, because I wasn't affected as a child. And I think that's where the real, I wasn't affected during my developmental stage. But this is a very interesting, the precedent this sets. So they awarded her $6 million in a rare verdict holding Silicon Valley accountable for its role in fueling a youth mental health crisis, right? The jurors concluded that Meta and Google should pay the woman $3 million in compensatory damages and an additional $3 million in punitive damages, with Meta on the hook for 70% of that amount. Wild. While the financial punishment is minuscule for companies each worth trillions of dollars, the decision is still consequential. It represents the first time a jury has found that social media apps should be treated as defective products for being engineered to exploit the developing brains of kids and teenagers. And this is a drop in the bucket for this one case. But now that people saw this woman was able to win this case, they're going to get a bunch of cases. I'm going to be working on my case. Well, really, really, really interesting. The verdict validated the plaintiff's lawyer's approach of shifting the legal target. Again, I think she had a really good team too. Instead of focusing on the content people see on social media, the case put the spotlight on how social media services were designed, which we were all privy to in that social media documentary on Netflix. What the hell was that called? The Social Dilemma. Back in 2020. Oh my God, I can't believe it was that long ago. But they present all the information you need in the Social Dilemma, right? That was the documentary that explored how social media manipulates psychology, fuels mental health issues, and impacts democracy through surveillance capitalism. And they interviewed Silicon Valley insiders And they talked about how the design was based in addiction. So the proof was fucking there. So many of us have a case, right? And Meta's apps, including Instagram and Google's YouTube, the jury concluded, were deliberately built to be addictive. And, and now I'm thinking it's like, we can sue apps. I think we can certainly sue dating apps. We can sue, there's so many places now. This really opens such a door. We're deliberately built to be addictive, and the company's executives knew this and failed to protect their youngest users. So perhaps this is only setting the precedent for minors, similar to cigarettes, meaning like they might have to put a warning for adults that social media can be addictive, but then ultimately we are able to, have autonomy over our brains, which I argue maybe we shouldn't, right? The outcome, I know that's a dangerous thing to say. I don't really mean that, but I do wish we could kind of fight social media off in many ways, in totality. Maybe there could be a legal limit on social media. All of our social media is off between the hours of X and Y. That would be great. A national outage. Although the more I'm saying it, the more it feels like, countries without a democracy. So probably not a good idea. The more and more it feels like a dictatorship. The outcome of this case could influence thousands of other consolidated cases against the social media companies. The litigation has drawn comparisons to the legal crusade in the 1990s against big tobacco, which forced the industry to stop targeting minors with advertising. While exactly how the litigation may upend the social media landscape is uncertain, the lawyers involved in the cases against the tech giants view the Los Angeles verdict as a promising early sign that the dam is breaking in favor of industry-wide changes. Today's verdict is a referendum from a jury to an entire industry that accountability has arrived. Joseph Van Sant, the co-lead lawyer for families and others suing social media companies, said in a statement after Wednesday's verdict. The lead trial lawyer for the plaintiff, Mark Lanier, conceded that the jury could have imposed greater financial penalties on the companies. Lanier, a Texas-born longtime litigator who has a folksy manner and is also a part-time pastor, what can he do, had shown the jury a jar full of M&Ms during arguments on a punitive damages on Wednesday. He said each piece of candy represented $1 billion of the company's worth. You've got to talk to Meta in Meta money, he told the jury. After the total $6 million in damages was announced, Lanier told reporters outside the courtroom, I would have thought it was likely that we would have gotten a bigger number. But he said, I trust the system and trust people to assess what's right and best. Just before he spoke, 2 jurors appeared in the hallway of the courtroom, and a swarm of reporters quickly encircled them. The jury foreman, who provided only his first name, Matthew, said that jurors tried to keep their emotions and personal experiences out of deliberations. We stuck to following the law and how it was presented to us. Another juror, who gave her name only as Victoria, acknowledged that the jury wanted to send a message to the companies. We wanted them to feel it, she said. We wanted them to realize this was unacceptable. Meta and Google vowed to appeal. In a statement, Meta said teen mental health is profoundly complex and cannot be linked to a single app, saying the company remains confident in its record of protecting teens online. This case misunderstands YouTube, which is a responsibly built streaming platform, not a social media site, said Google spokesman Jose Castañeda. Meta hit with $375 million in damages in a separate New Mexico trial. The verdict in Los Angeles came a day after a jury in a separate trial in New Mexico ordered Meta to pay $375 million in damages for failing to protect young users from child predators on Instagram and Facebook. The New Mexico jury found Meta responsible for misleading consumers about the safety of its platforms, declaring that the tech company had flouted state consumer protection laws. Probably if you're a convicted pedophile, you should not be able to download Instagram. I don't know how we would be able to do that, but I'm sure you could figure it out. You should not be able to have social media. That trial will enter a second phase in May, in which a judge will decide whether Meta created a public nuisance, like a trampoline in your backyard, That's what my mom would always say when I asked for one. And if the company must pay additional penalties to address harms. New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres said that he will also ask the court to force Meta to change its apps to make them safer. Juries in New Mexico and California have recognized that Meta's public deception and design features are putting children in harm's way, Torres said in a statement on Wednesday. The blockbuster verdicts land against the backdrop of school districts and state lawmakers around the country limiting or banning phone use in schools. This week's verdicts mark the first time juries have decided that tech companies are at least partially liable for online and offline dangers kids and teenagers encounter after incessantly using social media. During the trial in Los Angeles, the jury of 5 men and 7 women heard competing narratives about what role social media platforms played in the mental health struggles of Kaylee, also identified as KGM. Now 20 years old, Kaylee, who is from Chico, California, said that she first started using YouTube at 6 years old and Instagram when she was 11. Lawyers for KGM argued that Instagram and YouTube were deliberately designed to be addictive, and the companies knew the platforms were harming young people. I mean, I find Instagram to be way more addictive than YouTube, but I don't know. I know my dad really liked YouTube. Well, the tech.
You don't have a 2-year-old.
I don't have a 2-year-old, but my dad used to love watching like old concerts. Like I think he was like reliving like his youth a lot by watching like old concert footage. What is Aura watch?
So it's the incorporation of shorts onto the platform. That
right. Short form content. You and Chris DiStefano leading voices against it.
It's like, I mean, dude, I'm watching it melt my kid's brain in real time. Like it is messing up attention spans and God only knows what else. And then on top of that, the like people
keep serving you videos the same way that Instagram does.
Exactly. And they've also like the people have proven like they've set up brand new YouTube accounts with like nothing signed in, just like a brand new kids guest account. And within like 3 videos, it's sending you down like really weird and like arguably dangerous rabbit holes, right? Like I put on YouTube to put on Sesame Street for my kid, and now she's getting AI slop that's like clearly made in India. You know,
right? And I do wonder, like, obviously, you know, it's not like humans who are analyzing all of this. And you know, every week when I upload GWF, like I have to check, like, this is content that is not made for children. But it's like, who is this? You know, who is seconding that check? You know, like who is really making sure? Because plenty of things, you know, can slip through the cracks if you are able to convey a message in a in a slick enough way. KGM's legal team showed the jury internal documents from Meta in which CEO Mark Zuckerberg and other executives described the company's efforts to attract and keep kids and teens on its platform. One document said, if we want to win big with teens, we must bring them in as tweens. I mean, Justin Bieber approach, of course. Another internal memo showed that 11-year-olds were 4 times as likely to keep coming back to Instagram compared with competing apps, despite the platform requiring users to be at least 13 years old. Under questioning about those documents, Zuckerberg told the jury that keeping young users safe has always been a company priority. If people feel like they're not having a good experience, why would they keep using the product? Zuckerberg said. Every time on Instagram, and more so these days, I truly feel like my brain becoming fogged. Like I can't even explain it. Like it has started to physically hurt my brain to be on Instagram. The trial is a test case known as a bellwether, tied to about 2,000 other pending lawsuits brought by parents and school districts arguing that social media giants should be considered manufacturers of defective products for hooking a generation of young people to social media feeds. Well, especially because they did it on purpose. It wasn't even an accident. So therefore, my argument would be it's not defective. It was actually exactly what they it did exactly what they intended it to do, which was even worse. Which is even worse. Throughout the case, the companies insisted that there is no scientific proof that social media causes mental health issues. Well, it was presented in the social dilemma, so that's wild, suggesting that they are being used as a scapegoat for the multifaceted emotional issues children face that can have many root causes. Snapchat and TikTok were also defendants in that case, but both companies settled with KGM before the trial began. LA case focused on design of social media platforms to overcome liability shield. For decades, tech companies have avoided legal liability over the content that appears on their sites because of a federal law known as Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Decency Act, which says that tech companies are not legally responsible for what their users post. And I mean, think back to 1996 and how much computers have changed since then and what we are doing and able to do on computers. This has made it difficult to bring cases over social media harms to trial. In the Los Angeles case, lawyers took a different approach by focusing on how tech companies built their platforms. They argued that features like infinite scroll, constant notifications, auto-playing videos, and beauty filters made apps like Instagram and YouTube equivalent to a digital casino, which young people found too irresistible to put down. I always think about Carmen Electra with the beauty filters because I've seen Carmen Electra in person. She is one of the most breathtaking, if not, and I've seen Halle Berry, if not the most breathtaking person I've ever seen in person. Carmen Electra is stunning. And I follow Carmen Electra on social media, and I don't think she ever posts video without a very visible beauty app filter on. And it really bothers me. I'm not anti-beauty app by any means, but I'm just thinking like, man, if even Carmen Electra can't post a real picture of herself, what are the rest of us going to do? Because that woman is gorgeous. By taking this tack, the lawyers pursued a case alleging defective design that was able to get around the high bar set by Section 230. It's not what users post, the lawyers argued, but the very architecture of social media platforms. How do you make a child never put down the phone? That's called the engineering of addiction, Lanier said during the trial. I mean, slap it out of their hand is how you do it. Over the course of 5 weeks, get them a puppy. Over the course of 5 weeks, jurors heard from therapists, engineers, tech executives, including Zuckerberg, and the plaintiff herself about just how culpable big tech companies should be for contributing to KGM's mental health struggles. Were her issues pre-existing or exacerbated by her home life or deepened by social media? I mean, probably all of the above. Meta and Google fought back by underscoring the emotional and physical abuse her medical records indicated she experienced at home. Well, which explains why she was able to be on her phone so much, Lawyers for the tech companies also hammered the point that Kaylee's own therapist never documented that social media use was a factor in her mental health problems. Well, yeah, because I mean, unless you have a job like mine where social media is part of it, it's not, I feel like it's not something that would be discussed unless the therapist like singled it out, like, because it's so much a part, think of it, like, think of how much, for millennials, like TV affected us, right? So TV has so affected me deeply. It is deeply ingrained in the soul of who I am. I would argue that it impacted what I do for a living, but I don't think I don't think I would ever bring up television, in therapy, right? Do I talk about the entertainment business? Yes. Do I talk about social media in therapy? I do, but it's because it's directly tied to how I make my money. And I'm also an adult, so I know that it negatively affects my mental health, right? But yeah, I wouldn't expect a child to bring up something that is seemingly second nature that's always been a part of her life in therapy. It just doesn't make sense. From the witness, the therapist would have to ask the appropriate questions, and maybe therapists now need to be trained that they are assessing a child's relationship with social media, right? From the witness stand, KGM testified that using social media affected her self-worth as she got further down, drawn into the apps and withdrew from friends and family. She developed depression and body dysmorphia, she said, as she continuously compared herself to others and used beauty filters to enhance her appearance. She so craved the validation of social media, she said, that she would run off to the bathroom at school to check the number of likes her posts had received. Wow, that's brutal. She testified that it was hard to concentrate on school because all she wanted to do was stay glued to her social media feeds. I felt that way about Tetris in senior year of high school. I couldn't think about anything because I was just like, I need to get home and play Tetris. But that's because I was like checked out and I had senioritis and I was ready to move to the big city. The jury was not tasked with deciding whether Meta and Google had created Kaylee's mental health woes, but rather if her compulsive social media use was a substantial factor in her struggles, and if the defective design of the platforms was the direct cause of her distress. Lanier, who is known for trotting out large exhibits for trial spectacle, closed his questioning of Zuckerberg with one such display. The lawyer and several of his associates held up a 35-foot collage featuring hundreds of selfies Kaylee had posted to Instagram, many of which used beauty filters just as she was struggling with body image issues. Zuckerberg looked on as Lanier peppered him with questions about how and why a girl under the age of 13, Meta's minimum age to create an account, was able to post to the app so obsessively. In his closing because she knows how to lie about the year that she was born in his closing because they don't care, like just like alcohol, like they don't make it hard, like they don't care. They put the year that you were born up thing on because that's like, oh, we took responsibility. But if you can do math and you can lie and you're under 13, obviously you can get on there. I feel like, all the accounts say monitored by parent, but like I follow people who are under 13 for sure, like little kids dying of cancer whose parents have decided this is the perfect thing to chronicle. And I'm like, is it? I don't fucking know. I know sometimes they're using it to pay for treatment, but it's like, that's horrific too. That's a horrific, testimony to the failure of the American healthcare system. I could go on and on. In his closing argument, Lanier drew the jury's attention to internal documents showing how top officials at Meta and Google were aware of how their products were causing harm to young people. I don't naysay the opportunity to make money, Lanier said, but when you're making money off of kids, you have to do it responsibly. I feel like I would have ended the article on a stronger quote, perhaps, but very interesting article nonetheless. Very interesting. So yeah, I feel like they covered that. There's not really like a right or a left there. It's kind of like, that is what it is. I guess we could, maybe read an article produced by Meta perhaps on it, but that is what it is. And I'm really interested to see the precedent that this sets for, similar trials. I have a cuties corner now, and this is, I think I used to follow PETA on Instagram, right? And then I wasn't following them anymore. I'm sure I unfollowed them because I was just like, couldn't take the horrific stuff that they post anymore. But like I, personally, get emailed by PETA every now and then. So I was like, I should probably follow them again. And I'm immediately regretting it. They've been doing some good work, but I immediately regretted it because I'm seeing, chickens jumping out of cages. And then the one thing that they've been concentrating a lot on is the Iditarod, the dog sledding, right? So, it seems like one of my goals in life was to always go dog sledding, but now it seems like it's just abuse and these dogs don't really want to sled. So I don't really want, obviously the Iditarod is different than what you would be doing, like if you were just dog sledding, in wherever you are, Alaska or wherever you want to go dog sledding in a cold climate. But now, I also think it's kind of like many similar tourist attractions that involve animals where it's pretty much no chance that it can be ethical. And it's just not going to happen for me. I'm having a moral crisis right now. So anyway, the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race faces ongoing allegations of animal abuse from organizations like PETA. And this is the AI summary from Google, just so you guys know, because really it's not reported on a ton except for PETA. But I watched a lot of video footage and I'm also really familiar with the problems with animal abuse in greyhound racing in Australia from following Georgie Purcell, who I really trust so much, from the Animal Rights Party. And so it just seems to me like if the greyhound racing is the way it is, there's really no way that the Iditarod is not also guilty of many similar things, right? So animal abuse from organizations like PETA, which report that over 150 dogs have died in the race's history due to overexertion, pneumonia, and injuries. While proponents argue that the dogs are highly trained athletes that love to run and are well cared for, I saw the way that they are being transported. It is these are big dogs. Obviously, they're running dogs. The little tiny cages on the truck that they are being transported in. Number one, point to the exterior, and so they're very cold. There's no warmth there. And if if you have dogs, they love comfort and warmth. And I understand some of these dogs are huskies, and huskies do love the cold, but they're not all huskies. And and it just and even the way that they were like being yanked by their collars and stuff, like that stuff you can't fake. Like these animals were not being handled in a way that is proper, and there's not like a way to fake that, unless you're going to tell me that it was AI, and I don't think it was AI. Critics cite issues ranging from fatal injuries during the race to cruel treatment in breeding kennels. Key allegations and evidence of abuse. And the causes of death include aspiration pneumonia, inhaling their own vomit, heart attacks, trauma. In the 2025 race, a pregnant dog named Ventana died after being forced to run over 300 miles. A 2001 study published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine found that over 80% of dogs that finished the Iditarod sustained persistent lung damage. PETA investigations have revealed dogs being forced to run with bleeding paws, injuries from being hit by snowmobiles, and being dragged by sleds. Investigations of championship kennels found dogs kept on short chains, often without adequate shelter or veterinary care. Culling. Dogs that are not fast enough or surplus dogs may be killed or culled by methods such as being shot, according to reports. And that's from ABC News, very mainstream. Legal exemptions. In Alaska, dog mushing is largely exempt from anti-cruelty laws, allowing practices that would be considered abusive performed on household pets. PETA protests and campaigns have led several major sponsors to cut ties with the race, including Alaska Airlines, ExxonMobil, Coca-Cola, Wells Fargo. I mean, companies that are not known for being amazing ethically are even cutting ties with it. So, I mean, I think this is a great proof. Some veterinarians and mushers, such as Dr. Lee Morgan, argue that only a small percentage of the thousands of dogs involved have died and that they receive intensive care. Let's see. 2025, the pregnant dog died. Over 180 dogs were pulled from the trail due to injury or exhaustion, and allegations arose of a cover-up by officials regarding a dog with a severe emergency. In 2024, 3 dogs died during the race and 5 more died in training accidents, including being hit by a snowmobile. And in addition to dog injuries, I was also reading more about how there's moose are sometimes, or moose, is mooses plural? Meese. How if a moose interferes with the race, that they end up getting killed too. So it just seems like pretty gnarly, and this isn't, I mean, I'm guessing this all boils down to money. Like there's no reason besides money and entertainment why the Iditarod, has to happen. It's not like the dogs need to pay their bills by being in the Iditarod, that's not what's going on there. So that just has been kind of weighing on me recently, in things that I'm reading. All right. So let's move on to Girl, do a couple more articles, and then we'll wrap this up. I'm thinking maybe 2 more articles. So first I want to talk about the military enlistment age has changed. And this is from militarytimes.com. Army raises maximum enlistment age to 42. This just happened in a sweeping change to its enlistment regulations. The Army has raised the maximum age for eligible recruits to 42, the service announced. Changes highlighted in the memo, which was distributed this week and will go into effect in April, also include the removal of previous enlistment obstacles for recruits who have a single marijuana or drug paraphernalia conviction. The announcement comes as the Army continues efforts to widen its recruiting pool after falling short of its regular Army enlistment goals in 2022 and 2023 before rebounding in 2024. And I feel like a lot of similar agencies or, military things are really having problem recruiting. Like cops are having problems recruiting. I mean, specifically in the NYPD is having problems recruiting. ICE, I think really made it pretty loosey-goosey because they need to recruit a ton of people in the coming weeks. So all these kind of similar occupations not actually doing a great job of recruiting. Not a lot of people want to sign up for these things. The upper limit of the Army's previous allowable enlistment age was 35, but waivers were sometimes granted for older enlistees. The Air Force and Navy allow recruits over 40, while the Marine Corps caps enlistment at 28, but allows hopefuls who are 29 or over to request waivers. The average age of Army recruits is currently higher than previous years, with new recruits entering the service with an average enlistment age of 22.7, according to Army data, which makes me happy. I'm glad that these people are older and making these decisions when they're older. That's a good thing, I think. That figure, which reflects the average age of active duty and reserve recruits so far in fiscal year 2026, may reflect a shift from recent decades when the average age was 21.7 in the 2000s and 21.1 in the 2010s, according to data provided by Madison Bonzo, the Army Recruiting Division's chief of media relations. Army leaders say the change reflects how recruiters are increasingly seeking to reach a wider range of potential new service members. In another change that opens up the possibility of Army service to a wider pool, the Army announced that it will no longer require a waiver for one conviction of possession of marijuana or, as we said, one conviction of possession of drug paraphernalia. The change comes as more states legalize cannabis, even though its use remains prohibited for service members. Applicants with more serious drug-related offenses will still need waivers. So that's an update if you're interested in becoming a service member. There you go. Great news for you. And let's wrap it up here with the war in Iran, because I don't know how much longer my voice can last, quite honestly. I think I'm getting sick. So this is just, there was a lot of reports that the reason that we were to stay in this Iran war longer, and it might even get more, longer, more intense, whatever, is because the Saudi prince was, urging Trump to extend the war. So, he loves to be besties with foreign leaders. So this is from MSN.com. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has reportedly pressed U.S. President Donald Trump to maintain and even escalate military pressure on Iran, despite Trump's public signals toward a ceasefire. Reports suggest MBS views the conflict as a historic opportunity to weaken Tehran and reshape the Gulf's balance of power, even advocating strikes on energy infrastructure and possible ground operations. The alleged lobbying underscores a strategic gamble that could either secure Saudi dominance or destabilize the region further, with significant economic and security risks. Saudi Crown Prince's reported lobbying. Multiple reports from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal suggest Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has privately urged President Trump to maintain and even escalate the U.S.-led war in Iran. MBS allegedly argued the conflict is a historic opportunity to dismantle Iran's hardline government and reshape West Asia's power dynamics. Proposed measures reportedly included strikes on energy infrastructure and potential ground troop deployment, though Saudi officials publicly deny seeking to prolong the war. Strategic dilemma for Riyadh. Saudi Arabia faces a paradox. It wants Iran weakened enough to end its regional coercion, but fears the instability a prolonged war could bring. Vision 2030 success hinges on stability to attract investment and tourism, yet missile alerts in Riyadh and repeated attacks on oil facilities highlight the kingdom's vulnerability. Analysts note that both a premature peace and an extended conflict could undermine Saudi Arabia's economic and political ambitions. Regional and economic stakes. Iran's attacks have disrupted oil flows and blocked the Strait of Hormuz to U.S. allied shipping, impacting Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait. While alternative pipelines exist, they remain insufficient or under threat. A destabilized Iran could empower militias and trigger wider chaos, but a resilient Iran could continue threatening Gulf shipping and energy security, leaving Riyadh caught between two high-risk futures. Possible endgames and future scenarios. MBS's position appears less about choosing war over peace than ensuring the war's end state leaves Iran too weak to threaten its neighbors. If Trump escalates, Saudi Arabia risks more attacks and economic disruption. If he pivots too soon to diplomacy, Iran may emerge emboldened. Wars in the Gulf rarely produce clean outcomes, suggesting that even an apparent victory could leave unresolved tensions and long-term instability. And it looks like MSN kind of just like wrote that article from a lot of other sources, like almost the way AI gives you results. So that's kind of interesting. But I think it was also
Didn't it say it was done by Copilot?
Oh, at the top, did it? I didn't even
Yeah.
notice that. Great.
Some of it curated by Copilot. It
So
said.
curated, but I'm like, that's what it looked like. I'm like, I didn't even need it to say that. I could just tell. Like, I'm like, it basically looks like it was put together. But just a heads up. But I think it was a good summary of what's happening anyway. Because sometimes those international articles, like you're like, this is like a lot. Like we want to just understand this, the skeleton of this. And I think this ties into like a lot of other things that I had, read this week. Basically, like additionally, Reuters is reporting that South Korea's Lee calls for energy saving campaign, including shorter showers, car curbs. And this is all happening. And this is the South Korean president, Lee Jae-myung, who this week called for a nationwide energy saving campaign over risks to oil and gas supplies from the Iran war. So that's how they are being affected by this. We also have, what else? We also have, as far as like propaganda, veterans have been complaining that the like memes that Donald Trump is posting are really enabling him to control young people's thoughts of what is going on with the wars. Basically, it's enabling him to convince young people that like, no, like we need to do this, we need to go to war, and this is fun, this is powerful, America's the winner, we're the big guy. There's someone who is Donald Trump's top communication team had decided to treat the international conflict like a big joke. Veterans who were already questioning the war's strategy and endgame, he added, were unnerved to find the nation's highest office posting pop music scored clips of missile strikes mixed with footage from Call of Duty and SpongeBob SquarePants. And they even, they include this clip that is very Call of Duty-esque that the White House posted from their X account. And it really makes it look like this is all a big game. Like, can you play that little video? It's really short, or will we get dinged for it? Probably can play it. It's fine. It's kind of crazy. Oh, I played it before. It was weird that it's not going. Oh, here it is. Operation Epic Fury, it says. Oh, this is a different one. This is like Wii Golf, it looks like. Yeah, this is even worse. So it's mixing, if you're listening to this, it's mixing footage of, are these Wii games or just video games?
No, that's definitely Wii.
Yeah, it looked like Wii to me. Okay, so this is like, it's mixing footage from like Wii Golf, Wii Basketball, etc., with footage of missile strikes, and it's basically making it seem like, oh, come here, fight this Iran war with us. It's basically like a video game. You can do it. The White House videos posted to its official Instagram, TikTok, and X accounts have featured jokes from popular movie, TV, and gaming franchises such as Top Gun, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and Dragon Ball Z, and many feature comedic visual effects and rap music soundtracks. On March 9th, the day after the Post and other media organizations reported on a video showing a U.S. Tomahawk missile striking near an Iranian elementary school where dozens of children were killed, the White House posted a missile strike video backed by the rapper Nelly's song, Here Comes the Boom. Oh, my Lord. So Yeah, this is a meme strategy. And again, like, it's interesting because, we've seen the memification of politics in plenty of campaigns of these younger individuals, Kat Abughazele, Zohran Mamdani. But this is an example of doing it in a way that is unethical and similar to Meta and Google's lawsuit. And, big tobacco is a way to sell an idea that is very adult to children. I think that's basically what it is doing. And I'm glad that veterans are really upset by this. If you scroll down, Mike, there's this other one. That's the one that I had watched. The one that says Operation Epic Fury, destroy Iran's missile arsenal, destroy their navy, ensure they never get a nuclear weapon locked in. This one is very Call of Duty. And these are just really disturbing pieces. And it's, I don't know. It's very jokey. It's, until it's not, until it's you on the front lines, babies.
Go again.
This is GTA. This is GTA 5.
Oh, this is Grand Theft Auto. Sorry. Yeah. When I saw the font, I should have known.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Yeah, it's just making it seem like, going to serving in the military and fucking up Iran. Okay, wait, it's just playing on a loop. So this is just making it seem like, yeah, it's a big game. This is fun. You're going to be a tough guy. You're going to go. And people who have actually served and family members of people who have actually served know that, know the burden this puts on individuals. This is tough to do. This is a huge undertaking. This is trauma that will be with you for the rest of your life. It could take your life. It will take your friends' lives. It will take fellow servicemen's lives. You very well have mental and medical, physical, mental, issues that will be with you for the rest of your life. Your, night terrors, oh my God, just, I have a family member who lived with someone who had served, and they would just wake up in the middle of the night screaming. And it seemed just absolutely horrific. And I know people who have died from cancer that they got from military explosions. My good friend from middle school. I know someone, a friend of a family who took their own life because of trauma that they got from serving in the military. So this is really serious business. And our government, who is sending us, who are starting these wars, who are deciding on these wars, should certainly be treating it as such. All right. So that is our show for today. Thank you so much for spending, 2.5 hours with me. Sorry for the couple of times that we froze. I think it was a pretty smooth broadcast besides that. And Alfred, do you want to say goodbye to your fans? Come here, Angel. The bed is so comfy. Do you want to pull it over? I can't. Come here. You gonna say bye to all your fans? You say, cover your penis. Say bye. Thank you so much for joining Without a Country. Thanks for supporting my mom. Adopt, don't shop. We got to help those dogs in the Iditarod. And and he wants a TREAT. Right? I see your little tail, Angel. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for being here. Remember, get those tickets for Nacho Bitches on April 9th at New York Comedy Club. Make sure, if you want to participate in the Epstein Egg Hunt that is run by Disrupt, all these events are in New York. That's going to be on Saturday, April 4th in Washington Square Park. I will, of course, be at both of these events. Make sure to follow me on social media at Philanthropy Gal. Subscribe to this YouTube page, Without a Country. And Mike, what do you want to convey to the people of Without a Country land?
Mostly that April 9th, the Armored League is going to be back at the Palladium in Times Square. Going to be a very fun time. Get tickets at thearmoredleague.com.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Crystal for helping to, shout out to AJ also, everyone helping to make the show happen here every week, make the live stream happen. It only takes 4 of us to get what a tween could do pretty easily. And I didn't see who that was in the chat, but it just said War. Emmanuel said that war should never be compared to games, and could not agree more with that sentiment. It's absolutely like, it's just like, we have to think about, no matter who you vote for, if you're on the right or the left or whatever it is, please keep in mind, like, do these people respect you? Your elected officials should respect you, and they should value your life the way that they value theirs and their own children's lives. And I just don't really think that's true. And I think that's true for the right or the left, but the right, specifically the MAGA administration has just been pretty open about it. And it's interesting to me that more people who are kind of like very like pro-military, not that the left is anti-military, but I feel like the right in many ways is like, very pro-military, a lot more maybe service members from families on the right. I don't know. I'd have to look up that statistic. That's just like a guess. But if they're sending you to these into these wars, there better be a damn good reason that you're putting your life on the line, and that's 100% sure or factual. Like there better be a damn good reason. There better be a reason so good that they would feel comfortable sending their own child to fight that war. That's how much that they should be behind it. Alfred, you got a shout out from Alex. He's in the corner and saying, bitch, I don't care. I want to shout out to my food bowl. All right. Again, thank you so much. All hail to our dictator, Christopher Fungi. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Crystal. And thanks, AJ. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Running from the man, yeah, the madman's coming, yeah, the man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive.